American army might bump into a Russian army, and the two sides start shooting each other and trigger a war with the Soviet Union. So we thought, no, we better not risk it. So we told Stalin, we're going to hold the line right here. And Stalin knew that we would not advance beyond that line. So that is why that Russia got Berlin. Going to become very important later. But the Soviet Union got to Berlin first, where Hitler was hiding. And the Soviet troops went on a program of rape and pillage, just like the Germans had done when they were in Russia. It was said that every woman from 8 to 80 we could expect to get raped, and most of them did. And the Russians justified it by saying to the Germans, "This is what you Germans did to us in Russia," which was largely true. Now, Hitler. The story goes that Hitler married his longtime girlfriend, Eva Braun, and hours later, she poisoned herself and he shot himself. The people inside the bunker waited when there was a lull in the bombing. They went out and they buried Adolf Hitler and his wife. And actually they burned their bodies first and then buried them. That's the story. Hitler's body has never been seen. The Russians claim that they got it, but when you ask them, well, show us the body, they never did. And Stalin himself said Hitler escaped. Now, folk, this is something I didn't know when I was in school. But when you have a team of persons, and every one of them tells the same story about a tragic event like the death of the leader, and every one of them tells the same story, what does it tell you about the story?
It's wrong.
It's what?
It's wrong.
Wrong. Probably so. Because, I mean, go ahead, your leader dies. Well, like, for instance, we had a shooting of 26 elementary school students in Newington. And the rumors came out that one person told this and one person, they're all going to tell different stories. That's just human nature. Because maybe they're also, but in the case of Hitler's staff, every one on Hitler's staff told the same story. It probably is wrong. But nevertheless, we don't know what happened to Hitler. We learned from the last time that the Kennedy assassination files were released that the CIA went to Mexico to look for him. And anyway, whether they found him there or not, we haven't been told yet. But they actually went in 1955 to look for him. There were all kinds of rumors that he was still alive when I was 6 years old. But nevertheless, the standard story is he committed suicide in his bunker. His body was burned and buried, and the Russians took it, and we have not seen it since. Body has never been seen. And the man they dug up was not Hitler, according to some sources. All right. Anyway, shortly after Hitler died, or disappeared, call it what you will, Germany surrendered. Now, we'll leave Germany for a little bit and go back to Japan. General MacArthur began the process of island hopping. In other words, like say up here's Japan, but we're going to start down here in Australia, and we're going to hop from one island to another. Well, if you know anything about Australian geography, the island of Iwo Jima, well, not Iwo Jima, there's some big islands right here nearby. We went there first. Then we went, each island we went to got us close to Japan. Eventually we got to an island called Iwo Jima. And the most famous photograph of World War II is American troops raising the American flag on top of the island of Iwo Jima, the highest point there on Iwo Jima. And they actually have a statue of it now in Washington, which I have seen. And one of the men who raised the flag was an Indian soldier named Ira Hayes. Pershing had not wanted Indian people in his army in World War I, said they're not soldiers. They're brave, they're courageous, but they don't work as a team. But in World War II, we behaved differently. By the way, Pershing finally took them in as signal soldiers. And when I was in the army, I was a signal soldier. Because Pershing had learned to speak Navajo. A lot of his officers knew Navajo. Not one German knew any American Indian languages. So these Indians could talk to each other in their native tongue, and if the Germans were listening in, they had no idea what was being said. So Pershing finally took them in as signal soldiers. In World War II, There's been some controversy about the identity of one of the men who, but I think they finally got that settled. One of the men who was raised the flag. But one of them definitely was an Indian named Ira Hayes. Anyway, we've got islands. The Japanese losses, they lost men at a ratio of 10 to 1. And Japan found out we can't just put every one of our men who lose into camps. We've got to let them back in and fight again. And they were really concerned about their losses. As we got closer into Japan, we began bombing Japan itself, including bombing Tokyo. And these bombs at this time were so good that a lot of persons who they were dropped on died not from the blast, but from suffocation, because a bomb would take all the oxygen out of the air and use it for the fire. When the fire bomb started. And a lot of persons died from suffocation for lack of oxygen. I mean, the heat of these bombs was tremendous, and it would even melt a steel framework. But Japan still would not surrender. The last island before we got to Japan was the island of Okinawa. I'm not going to write that down. Okinawa, when we got Okinawa, now in Okinawa, I mean, I talked to a man who was at Okinawa. He was a replacement troop. 100% of the troops who initially landed on Okinawa were either killed or wounded or replaced. Every one of them. But while we were at Okinawa, getting ready to invade Japan itself, which didn't happen, Japan surrendered. All right, here's the story of the surrender, folks. Albert Einstein had written President Roosevelt a letter encouraging Roosevelt to develop the atomic bomb. The atomic bomb was not ready, so we did not drop it on Germany. But the atomic bomb got ready shortly after Germany surrendered. Germany surrendered in April 1945, a few days after Roosevelt died. Germany surrendered. Now, Japan would not quit fighting, and the Japanese were more fanatical about fighting. When Japan saw they were losing, they resorted to kamikaze warfare. Basically, they load up a plane with munitions and then try to fly that plane smack into an American ship. And when the Americans saw, they didn't know at first what was happening, but they would fly these planes and hope that they would hit the ship and the plane would blow up, killing the pilot, of course. It did not work very well because we later learned that these planes were really hard to steer, and the pilots who flew them were high on drugs and could not see straight, could not aim straight either. But anyway, so that most of the planes fell harmless, or they were hit by a bullet and blown up in the air. But nevertheless, it was Japan's last attempt to, final weapon, you might say. But in the meantime, we were developing an atomic bomb. The place we developed, we scattered it out. Now, here was where Germany and Japan made a few of the mistakes. Their war factories were bunched together. Now, I spent 27 years at Lockheed. When we built an airplane, we didn't build it all. We made the final assembly in one factory. But part of the plane was built here and part there, part somewhere else. Scattered. The atomic bomb was not all developed at Oak Ridge, Tennessee. It was not all developed at Kings Mills. And part of it was developed at Oak Ridge. The people of Oak Ridge were told, you must move out. We can't tell you why, but they were paid. I mean, the government moved in and told them they're not going to go ahead. Here's your check. You have 30 days to get out. Here's a check for your place, for your property. If you think you deserve more, take it to court. The judge will decide. But moved everybody out. And moved the scientists and their families in. But it was not all developed at Oak Ridge. It was also developed out in a white sands proving ground in New Mexico. We blew one up in New Mexico. It convinced us it would work. Then, when Japan didn't surrender, now, you find a lot of books that say that Japan was ready to surrender and willing to surrender, but we insisted that they surrender unconditionally. Why? Because, folk, none of us have experienced this. The men who did the negotiating had fought not one world war, they had fought 2 world wars. And they were determined we're not going to have a World War III. So they told Germany and Japan both, you must surrender unconditionally. That means we can do with you what we want to. We can move in. Japan was, well, please let us keep our emperor. No, we don't want there to be any misunderstanding. You must surrender unconditionally. Germany has surrendered unconditionally, and French and American and British troops moved in, and they British troops and American and French troops occupy Germany to this day. If you know a man in the army, he might be stationed in Germany at some point. I mean, a lot of millions of American soldiers have been stationed in Germany and Japan. We still have troops in Japan. Japan would not surrender unconditionally. So in August, I believe August 6, 1945, we went and we dropped an atomic bomb on the city of Hiroshima. 70,000 people were killed. The plane that carried it, the bomb was called Little Boy. The pilots that carried it were 11 miles away from the blast. Basically what they did, now if you know anything about bombs, when you drop them from a plane, they'll make a path like this, but they'll always stay right below the plane. Except this time when this plane dropped a bomb, the plane immediately turned around and ran as fast as it could away. They could feel the blast 11 miles away. It was very, very powerful blast. It leveled the city of Hiroshima. A few days later, Japan still wouldn't surrender. We dropped another one on Nagasaki. This time, Japan surrendered unconditionally. Oh yes, as for the emperor, we let them keep their emperor. But we told the emperor, you must renounce your claim to divinity, which the emperor did. We did not tell the Japanese that we only had 2 bombs, it would take us months to get another one. They didn't know that. They assumed we had a whole arsenal full of them. We actually had, we dropped the only 2 we had. Was it right? All right, folks, I think it saved 1 million lives on both sides, or 2 million lives. 1 million Japanese soldiers and civilians who would have died if we had invaded. 1 million American soldiers who would have died if we invaded. It saved 2 million lives at a cost of some 70,000 in one city and 70,000 in another city. Any of you want to have a comment? I mean, your comments are welcome. To me, it was just, it's the way war has to be fought. We occupied Japan. No, American troops did not go on a program of rape in Japan, which the Japanese expected, but the American soldiers were told to behave themselves, and American soldiers started giving the Japanese boys their candy, making friends with the Japanese. We began to rebuild Germany and Japan. Now I want to remind you of something, folks, then I'm going to give you a break. After World War I, we made Germany pay reparations. The Germans hated us for it and came back and fought us again. After World War II, we went in and rebuilt Germany. And the Germans, I mean, I'm repeating what I know I said the other day, Tuesday, but I think it's well worth repeating. Reparations, they make the people who have to pay them very, very angry. And make them want to come back and fight again. Not to mention it led to a couple of depressions, one of them big. All right, anybody have any comments? Okay, be back in about 10 minutes.